I've worked every kind of dead-end job you can imagine. Coffee shops where you get yelled at for running out of oat milk. Gas stations that smell like antifreeze and cigarettes. But nothing prepared me for the night shift at Burger King in Blackwater, Michigan. The town's been dying slow ever since the factory shut down. There's still folks here. Ghosts, mostly, wrapped in hoodies and broken habits. You learn not to ask too many questions on the 3 a.m. shift. You wipe tables, keep your head down, and pray nobody walks in needing anything that isn't on the menu. I took the job to pay off my sister's hospital bills. She's got lupus, I've got loans, 2 roommates who always forget rent, and the kind of insomnia you don't outgrow. I became assistant manager by default. Other people quit and I just stayed. Then Trent showed up. I remember the night clearly. October 19th, wind cold enough to bite skin. I was refilling ketchup bins when I heard the bell chime. He didn't come through the customer door. He came through the employee entrance in back. "Name's Trent," he said. "Heard you needed night staff." No resume, no ID, no references, just this calm, steady voice. There was something off about him, but I was too tired to care. The GM hadn't sent new hires in weeks, and I was pulling doubles 6 days a week. "You ever work fast food before?" I asked. He smiled, barely. "Yeah, I know the ropes." So I handed him a uniform. Didn't even check his paperwork until later. And when I did, I noticed something strange. No address. Just an emergency contact. Mom. Trent turned out to be incredible. Too good. Showed up early. Never took breaks. Cleaned like a machine. Knew exactly how to operate every fryer, every register, even the security panel no one else could figure out. He worked 8 hours straight without once using the bathroom. When I asked if he needed anything, he just said, "I'm good." That should have been my first red flag, but I didn't want to lose him. One night, I offered him a sandwich. He shook his head. "Can't eat when I'm clocked in." "Union rules?" I joked. He smiled that same hollow smile. Something like that. He worked for 2 straight weeks. No sick days, no call-outs. Just silence, a name tag, and that perfect attendance. Then on November the 2nd, he didn't clock out. That night started like any other. Cold, quiet, bleak. The only sound came from the flickering neon sign out front, humming like a bad transmission. Trent was wiping down the fry station. I was restocking lids. We didn't talk much. He wasn't the kind of guy who liked small talk. At 2:45 a.m., I saw him wipe the last fry scoop and nod toward the freezer. "Gonna grab more patties," he said. I nodded. "Cool. Be careful with the latch. It sticks." He opened the door. The freezer light flickered like always. A few seconds later, it swung shut. Then silence. 5 minutes passed. 10. After 15, I started to worry. I went back there, knocked once. "Trent?" No answer. I opened the door. Nothing. No Trent. No footprints in the frost-covered floor. Just one shelf wiped clean. No crates, no boxes, just bare metal, gleaming like someone had just stood there. The freezer was cold enough to make your breath freeze in your nose. But that shelf? No frost, no ice, not even condensation. I called the cops. They showed up around 4:15 a.m., ran through the security footage. What it showed chilled me worse than the freezer ever could. 4:05, Trent wipes down the station. Trent walks into the freezer. After that, nothing. No one walks out, no exit, no shadow, nothing but the door swinging gently closed. Then came the weirdest part. The detective called the number on Trent's emergency contact form. His mother picked up. I only caught part of the conversation, but when the cop came back, he looked shaken. "She says her son died 5 years ago," he said. "Car crash. Back in 2018, he used to work here." I quit the next day, walked out without clearing the register, didn't even grab my coat. The GM tried calling. Left me 3 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them. But Trent? He didn't quit. His name started popping up again on the shift roster. I thought it was a glitch. But every week there it was. Trent, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. New hires asked who he was. He doesn't work here, the GM said. We never had a Trent. They didn't believe him. One girl said she saw someone cleaning the grills at 3 a.m. Tall guy, real quiet, same uniform. A few days later, a cook told me that every morning, Trent's uniform reappeared in his locker. Always clean, always pressed. The name tag warm too. The touch. Then came the freezer reports. Someone knocking, always faint, always around 3 a.m. One guy tried to open it, said it felt like something was pushing back. The shelf, still clean. No matter how much frost built up, that one spot never froze. Then corporate started asking questions. Why was someone still clocking in under Trent's old ID? Why were paychecks still being mailed? They came down hard, threatened to shut the place down if it didn't stop, but they couldn't explain how the checks were still getting cashed. Someone was clocking out, and someone was taking the money. I moved to Lansing, took a job at Wendy's off the highway, cleaner store, nicer management, and most importantly, no night shifts. My first day, the manager handed me a plastic-wrapped uniform. Leftover. From the last girl, he said. Still has the tag, you can swap it out later. I glanced at it. Name tag said Trenta. Close. Too close. Can I just burn it? I joked. The manager blinked. That's dark. I burned it anyway. Out back, behind the dumpster, poured lighter fluid on it and watched the flames rise. Felt good. Final. Done. But when I came in the next morning, there it was. Back in my locker, still sealed, still pressed, still warm. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling of my cheap apartment and thought about that freezer. The shelf, the frostless patch, the way the cold didn't feel like weather. It felt like something breathing. The thing is, Trent never wanted much. Just to work, just to show up, just to belong. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that place wasn't haunted. It was recruiting. 6 months later, Blackwater Burger King closed for good. Official report said structural failures. Rumor was the health inspector passed out after opening the freezer, said it was too cold to be natural. They took out the wiring, boarded up the doors, shut it all down. But the security system? Still online, corporate kept it active for insurance. 1 week later, the cameras caught something at exactly 3:17 a.m. The freezer door opened, slowly, deliberately, and Trent stepped out. Or something that looked like Trent. Wearing the same uniform, same tag, no frost on him at all. He walked to the time clock, slid in a card, punched out, then walked into the darkness, disappearing out of frame. No one's seen him since. But sometimes late at night, when you walk past an empty fast food joint and hear the low buzz of neon and the gentle hum of a freezer, you might feel him near, ready to pick up the next shift. Moral of the story. Some jobs won't let you go. You don't quit. You get replaced. And sometimes, you keep working, even after they've buried your name. I never thought I'd end up working overnight at a Burger King in downtown Toronto. But student loans don't care if you're exhausted or scared. They just keep piling up. It was January, freezing cold, and I was behind on tuition again. I'm studying psychology, ironically. I understand anxiety from a clinical perspective, but understanding it doesn't make it go away. My hands still sweat when I talk to strangers. My stomach still knots walking into a crowded room. So yeah, working alone at night in a fast food joint wasn't my dream job, but the extra pay helped. Barely. My mom's friend Derek Voss managed the place. He vouched for me. It's easy, he said. Quiet at night. Mostly homeless folks looking to warm up or a few drunk kids grabbing a late snack. He shrugged off the safety concerns like I was being dramatic. "There's cameras. You'll be fine." At first I was. Most nights were quiet. I'd clean, restock, and maybe serve a handful of customers. I kept my headphones in, just one earbud, and listened to true crime podcasts. Probably a mistake in hindsight. That night, though, everything felt off. Colder than usual. The place was dead silent except for the buzzing lights and the distant hum of the city. Around 1:30 a.m. I'd just finished wiping down the counters when I heard a metallic clang echo from the alley behind the store. I froze. Probably just the wind, or maybe the dumpster lid shifting from the cold. I told myself that. Repeated it like a prayer. But then I looked at the back camera feed, and there he was. A man in a hoodie, standing completely still just outside the delivery door, staring directly into the lens, staring straight at me. I backed away from the monitor like the man on the screen could reach through it. I double-checked the back door log. I had locked it. I always did. Derek made a point of yelling about that during training. Delivery door stays locked after midnight. Period. So how was he standing there? And how long had he been watching? I switched to the next feed. Nothing. Then, movement. My stomach dropped. He wasn't outside anymore. He was inside. He stood near the drive-through station, half lit by the glow of the soda machine. He didn't move like someone in a hurry. He wasn't scrambling for money or shouting. He just looked, slow, casual, almost curious. His shoes scuffed softly against the tile. I ducked behind the counter, heart pounding. I didn't know what to do. I'd had zero training for this. Derek said the alarms were only for real emergencies, and that police don't come unless you're bleeding. Great advice, really. I reached into my apron, trying to quietly grab my phone. The fabric rustled loud as thunder in the silence. I hit 911 and dropped the volume to 0. My eyes stayed locked on the tiny gap under the counter. I saw his feet move past, slow, careful steps toward the register. He was between me and every exit. Then I heard it, the register drawer creaking. Open, coins spilled, the cash rustled. I didn't think. I just moved. I crawled toward the narrow hallway that led to the staff bathroom, keeping low and praying he couldn't hear me. Every breath felt like a risk. I didn't stop to think. I didn't even feel scared anymore. Just pure instinct. There was only one way out, and it was barely big enough to fit me. The staff bathroom was the size of a closet, cold tile, broken soap dispenser, and the smallest window I'd ever seen. I locked the door and stood there shaking, listening for footsteps. I could still hear movement, muffled scuffs, and faint clinks. He was still in the front. I looked at the window again. Too small, too high. But it was all I had. I dragged a mop bucket over and climbed up, trying to stay quiet. My hands trembled as I pushed the window open. It squealed, loud and slow, like an old hinge in a horror movie. I cringed, paused, listened. No footsteps yet. I hoisted myself up, scraping my elbows against the frame. My chest barely cleared it. The cold outside hit me like a slap. My coat was inside. Didn't matter. I wiggled, kicked, and finally slipped through. I fell hard onto the frozen pavement behind the building. Pain shot through my ankle as it twisted, under me. I screamed into the cold air and immediately covered my mouth, hoping he hadn't heard. I didn't wait. I limped toward the sidewalk, slipping once on black ice, barely catching myself. A 24-hour convenience store blinked across the street like a beacon. My ankle throbbed, my legs shook, but I made it. I burst through the doors, panting, crying, trying to explain to the stunned cashier what had happened. He didn't even ask questions. Just picked up the phone and dialed the police. While he talked, I collapsed onto the floor, hugging my knees, shivering from the cold and the fear. I didn't feel safe. Not yet. Not even close. I wouldn't feel safe for a long time. The cops arrived, in minutes. 3 officers swept the restaurant while another tried to ask me questions. I couldn't say much. My throat felt closed. My thoughts were jumbled. Eventually, one of them radioed in. No suspect on site. Registers open, no injuries reported, no suspect. They said the back door was still locked. No forced entry, no prints, just a broken drive-through window and an open register drawer. Some bills were gone. Not a lot, but enough to prove I wasn't imagining it. Derek showed up about an hour later. He was pissed at me. "You should have called me first," he snapped like I'd interrupted his beauty sleep. "You panicked and made it worse." I tried to explain, but he didn't listen. Said the cameras were too grainy. Said I probably left. The drive-through window unlatched. He filed a half-hearted report and offered to write it off as vandalism. I quit that same day. No job was worth this. Not the cold, not the fear, not the sleepless nights. And definitely not working for someone like Derek. The police followed up once asking if I remembered anything else. I didn't. Just his eyes, sunken, dark, hollow. Like he hadn't slept in years. Like he saw through me. They never caught him, and they never would. Now it's June and I still can't sleep with the lights off. I moved apartments, started working at a bookstore during the day. Safer, quieter. But even now, when the store is empty and I'm alone behind the counter, I find myself checking the back room twice, sometimes 3 times, just to make sure. That man didn't say a word, didn't touch me, didn't even run. But something about the way he moved, the way he watched, it stuck with me. Still does. I have nightmares sometimes. I wake up thinking I hear that same metallic clang from the alley or the ding of the drive-through bell. Once, while walking past a Burger King downtown, I swore I saw someone standing by the window. Same hoodie, same posture. When I blinked, he was gone. Maybe it's PTSD. Maybe my brain is just playing tricks. But that feeling, the one where you know you're being watched, even when no one's around, it never fully leaves. I don't talk about it much. My mom says I overreacted. Derek still manages that location, far as I know. Probably telling new hires not to make a big deal out of things. But I remember every detail, and I know one thing for sure. He wasn't just there for the money. He was looking for something, and I pray every night that it wasn't me. I never believed in ghosts. I still don't, not really. But something happened to me last October, and whether I call it a haunting or a breakdown, the truth is the same. I lost my son, and it all started with a goddamn paper crown. My name's Daniel Mercer. I'm 35, born and raised in western Pennsylvania. Hollow Hill isn't the kind of place people move to, just one of those towns you pass through on the way to somewhere else. A couple stoplights, old coal families, empty lots where strip malls used to mean something. I moved here after the divorce because it was cheap, quiet, and close to my ex's parents. My son, Ethan, had just turned 7. Bright kid, sensitive. He'd been having nightmares for months, waking up screaming about the king in the walls or the man who whispers through the vents. At first I thought it was anxiety. His mom leaving did a number on him, and I wasn't exactly holding it together either. Working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on, taking photos for real estate listings by day, driving Uber Eats by night. Still, I tried my best. Then came October 29th, Ethan's birthday. I asked him what he wanted. He didn't hesitate. "Burger King," he said. "The one with the haunted crown." I thought it was just a Halloween thing, some YouTube video. Kids today watch the weirdest stuff, backrooms, liminal spaces, VHS horror edits. Creepy, sure, but not dangerous. So I said sure. Figured it'd be easy. A cheap meal, maybe a smile for once. God knows he hadn't smiled in weeks. We drove up Route 19 as the sun slipped low. The Burger King sat alone in a half-dead strip mall next to a boarded-up laundromat and a vape shop with flickering neon. Paint peeling, windows smeared with fingerprints, the kind of place that should have been shut down years ago. Still, we walked in. 4:30 p.m. The dining room was empty except for a teenager in a greasy uniform and a manager behind the counter who looked like he hadn't slept in days. The overhead lights buzzed like old insects. Ethan bounced toward a booth near the back. "They have it," he whispered. "I saw it in the video." I raised an eyebrow. "What video?" He grinned. "The one that plays when you're asleep. The king says if I wear his crown, I get to play forever." I laughed. Nervously, maybe. "YouTube again?" I asked. "You know half that stuff is fake." But Ethan didn't answer. His eyes scanned the room like he was looking for something hidden, something that had called him. I ordered him a kid's meal and a coffee for myself. The manager flinched when I asked about the haunted crown. "We don't carry that promotion," he said quickly, not meeting my eyes. "No Halloween toys this year." Before I could push further, Ethan gasped and pointed under the booth. "Daddy, look!" There it was, nestled in the shadows beneath the peeling vinyl. A crown, but not the kind made of paper or plastic. This thing looked old, leather cracked with age, stitched with black thread along the edges. It looked handmade, ritualistic. I pulled it out slowly. The leather was stiff and warm like skin that had just been held. I didn't like touching it. Neither did the manager. He stepped back like it bit him. "That's not one of ours," he said, voice trembling. "You should throw it away." But before I could say anything, Ethan snatched it. "It's mine," he said, and slid it onto his head. His face changed. His smile stretched just a bit too wide. Not a child's joy, something older, practiced. "Fits perfect," he whispered. "The king says it's mine now." I reached to take it off. Ethan screamed like I'd stuck him with a knife. His hands clawed at mine. He kicked, thrashed, and shrieked louder than I'd ever heard him. The manager shouted something and a fry cook came running. But when he touched the crown, he jerked away, mouth twisted in disgust. "It feels wrong," the fry cook muttered. "Like it's watching you." I didn't argue. I just picked up Ethan, still screaming, and carried him to the car. The second we left the building, he went limp, still breathing, still conscious, but no longer talking. He stared out the window the whole ride home, eyes wide, silent. The crown stayed on. That night, I couldn't sleep. Ethan didn't eat dinner, didn't speak, just sat on his bed whispering to the corner of the room. I stood outside his door and listened. "He's under the restaurant," he was saying. "He's waiting for me to come back." I wanted to scream, but I just walked in and sat beside him. "Buddy," I said, trying to keep my voice level, "can we take the crown off just for tonight?" Ethan's head turned, slowly. His eyes didn't meet mine. "The king says no." I called a doctor the next morning. We drove to a pediatric clinic an hour away. The staff tried everything, bribery, sedatives, even gentle tugging. But the crown wouldn't budge. Every time someone touched it, Ethan screamed like he was being flayed alive. They ran scans, MRIs, X-rays. Nothing unusual, the doctor said, baffled. No adhesives, no injuries. It's like it's part of him. I took him home and started researching. That's when I found the articles. October 1987. 5 children missing from Hollow Hill. Last seen at the same Burger King, all of them wearing Burger King crowns. The police dismissed it as unrelated. The store changed ownership. No one was ever charged. No bodies were found. I dug deeper. Reddit threads, local ghost blogs. A user named ACrownTale67 posted an old VHS rip of an ad that shouldn't exist. Grainy footage of a smiling figure in a gold-trimmed robe whispering in a static-filled voice, "Come be my prince. Come play forever, just wear the crown and follow me." The upload date? 1986. I stared at the screen until the video looped. October 31st, Halloween. I left Ethan with a neighbor and drove back to the Burger King. It felt colder inside. Quieter. I demanded to speak with the manager. He refused to talk, said I needed to leave. But the fry cook, the old guy with the shaky hands, pulled me aside near the mop sink. "They shouldn't have built this place here," he whispered. "There's a well, old one, covered over when they put in the foundation." I asked what was in it. He just said, "Something that doesn't sleep." He told me kids used to dare each other to climb into the basement, that after the fifth kid vanished, the owners sealed the trapdoor with concrete. But he'd heard things in the vent grates, whispers, laughter, and once, long ago, a hand reaching up from the floor drain. "Sometimes things crawl out," he said, eyes wet. "Sometimes they take things back." I went home shaking. That night, Ethan laughed. In his room for the first time in days. Not a child's laugh, deeper. Wrong. When I opened the door, the window was open. Cold October air rushed in. The crown lay on the floor, bathed in moonlight. Ethan was gone. The police were useless. No signs of forced entry, no footprints, no fingerprints, just a single muddy handprint on the windowsill, much too large for a child's. I showed them the VHS footage. The manager claimed he'd never seen it. The fry cook quit the next day. The restaurant closed for repairs a week later. Never reopened. The town stopped talking about it. I didn't. I kept calling, kept digging. But Hollow Hill has a way of burying things, the kind of silence that smothers truth, that rewards forgetting. I kept the crown, locked it in a safe, but sometimes I swear I hear it rustling in there, like it's breathing or waiting. And sometimes I wake up at 4:30 a.m. and hear whispering in the vents, a voice saying, "Come be my prince." Not all monsters hide in the dark. Some wait under flickering lights, wear familiar smiles, and lure you with promises of play. Listen when your children speak of fears, because some doors, once opened, never close. They say you get used to anything if you do it long enough. That's a lie. You don't get used to grease under your nails or the smell of floor cleaner that never quite covers up the rot in the walls. You don't get used to people talking to you like you're nothing, even if you've done time, especially if you've done time. My name's Vic Delaney. I'm 29, 2 months from finishing a 3-year probation after a stint in Fremont County Jail. Dumb fight, dumber friends. Broke a guy's jaw outside a bar over a bad poker hand and a worse temper. Since then, life's been about keeping my head down. My parole officer doesn't ask questions as long as I clock in every night at 10 and out at 6. That Burger King sits like a scab on the edge of I-90, surrounded by empty lots and the skeleton of a gas station that burned down last winter. The lights inside flicker like they're arguing with the wind, and the heat never works right. But it's a paycheck, and that's more than most folks around Harlan's Bend can say. Most nights were predictable. Drunk drivers looking for coffee, meth heads asking for ice water, long-haul truckers passing through who tipped in dimes and crumbs. And then there was Double Stack. That's not what was on his license, but that's what we called him. Big guy, probably pushing 400 pounds. Always showed up around 2 a.m., ordered the same thing: 6 Whoppers, a large Coke, and a bag of onion rings. Sat at table 4, right under the busted air vent. Never spoke unless you asked him a direct question. Didn't even eat fast, just slow, methodical chewing like it was his only job in the world. He didn't show up on March 8th. First time in 6 months. Didn't think anything of it. People vanish around here all the time. They OD, hit the road, or slip into the woods and don't come back. So we kept flipping burgers, wiping counters, and praying the health inspector didn't come through unannounced. But 2 nights later, the smell hit. Thick, greasy, like something left to rot in a deep fryer. I figured it was the dumpsters until Danny pointed to table 4. "Smells worse over here, man," he said, pulling his shirt over his nose. He wasn't wrong. And that's where it all started. The manager, Royce, was this burnt-out ex-Marine who'd taken too many kicks to the head and too few to the soul. You could tell he stopped caring around the Clinton administration. When we told him about the smell, he rolled his eyes and shoved a mop bucket at me. "Clean it up," he said. "If it bleeds, bleach it." So that's what we did. I grabbed the screwdriver from the storage closet and popped off the bolted down seat at table 4. We weren't supposed to touch the booths, corporate policy, but the smell was unbearable. I figured I'd find old food or maybe a dead rat. Instead, I found 37 Burger King wrappers folded into neat squares and stacked perfectly beneath the cushion. They looked clean. Too clean. Like someone had taken the time to iron them. Beneath. That was the meat. Half-chewed burger patties, still pink in the middle, sitting like offerings in a little nest of paper. And deeper in the cracks between the floor tiles. Something slick, wet, moving, like jelly with a heartbeat. Danny was the first to scream. "It's breathing," he shouted, stumbling back. "Dude, it's alive!" "Shut up," I snapped. But my voice shook too. Royce came out from the office, took one look, then turned around like he'd seen it before. He didn't even ask questions. Just dumped half a bottle of bleach on the floor, told us to screw the seat back down, and walked away muttering about keeping things quiet. I should have walked, right then. Called my PO, said I was done, but I had 60 days left. Just 60 days. So we cleaned it up. Screwed the seat down. Problem solved. Or so we told ourselves. A week passed. The smell never fully went away. Sometimes, around 2:30, I'd swear I heard the booth creaking, like someone had just sat down, but every time I looked, the booth was empty. Then came the dreams. Started as flashes, greasy fingers, mouths that didn't close right. One night I dreamt of Double Stack. He was sitting at table 4, his jaw unhinging like a snake's, rows of tiny needle-like teeth twitching beneath his gums. I woke up drenched in sweat, heart hammering. 2 nights later, I saw someone sitting at the booth. Skinny guy, pale as drywall, trucker's cap pulled low. He didn't talk, just stared straight ahead and ordered 6 Whoppers, nothing else. Ate them one by one, wrappers folding neat in his hands, just like Double Stack. "New regular?" I asked Danny. He didn't answer, just stared at the guy like he was watching a car crash in slow motion. Next night, Danny didn't show, didn't text, didn't call. His mom came by the next morning crying, said he never came home. Cops opened a missing person file. I lied. Told them he probably took off to Denver. Kid always talked about leaving, but I knew better. I'd seen how he looked the last time he cleaned near. Table 4, like the floor was watching him. It was my last night on the job. I'd turned in my notice, 2 weeks short of probation, but I'd take the risk. Better than ending up like Danny, or whatever Double Stack had become. That night, the restaurant was empty. Even the truckers skipped us. Wind howled through the vents like something warning me not to go near the booth, but I did. I walked over to table 4, kneeled down, and pressed my hand flat to the floor tiles. Warm. I hesitated, then leaned closer, resting my ear against the ground. At first nothing, then thump. Faint, slow, rhythmic. Thump, thump, like a pulse, a heartbeat. And worse under that, something else. Something that sounded like chewing. I stood up, took off my apron, and walked out. Didn't even clock out. Didn't look back. I moved to Billings the next week. Got a job at a salvage yard. It's honest work. No customers, no deep fryers, no booths. But even now, months later, I catch myself doing weird things. Like folding trash wrappers into neat little squares before I toss them. Like waking up at 2:37 a.m., hands slick with sweat and smelling faintly of beef grease. I haven't been back to Harlan's Bend. I won't. I still don't know what was under that floor. But I know it's still there. Still feeding. Every town's got a hole somewhere. Most folks just don't know where to look. Some things stay buried for a reason. When a place feels wrong, don't wait for proof. Don't stay out of guilt, or money, or fear of starting over. The longer you sit at the table, the more likely you are to become part of the meal. And if you ever feel the ground pulsing beneath you, get up, walk away, don't look back. When you're working the graveyard shift at a rundown Burger King in a town like Blackwater, Missouri, you learn real quick what the dark smells like. Not metaphorical darkness. I mean literal dark. The kind that seeps into your clothes, makes the fryer grease feel cold, the kind that sits on your skin even after a hot shower, that kind of dark. I'd been clocking in at 10 p.m. and out at 6 a.m. for 6 months straight. Blackwater didn't have much left to offer except a dying steel mill and a chain of gas stations that always looked one lightning strike away from a fireball. I dropped out of college to care for my dad after his second stroke. The old man didn't even recognize me most days, and the debt collectors didn't care that I'd sacrificed a degree in psychology to keep him alive. They just wanted payment. So I flipped burgers and mopped floors. The Burger King on Ashford Avenue was a relic. Built in the 70s, it hadn't been updated since. Flickering signs, cracked tiles, and an ice machine that screamed like a dying animal every hour on the hour. The night crew was mostly just me, Maddie, and this guy named Ray who smelled like weed and worked the fryer like he was cooking his final meal. It was around 3 a.m. on November 12th, first cold snap of the season when it started. The drive-through buzzer went off, just once. No headlights, no engine sounds. I figured it was faulty. We got those glitches sometimes. But then it buzzed again. And then, clear as a bell, the intercom crackled and played back something I'd said 5 minutes earlier while scrubbing a ketchup-caked tray in the sink. God, I hate this place. The voice was mine. Identical. But my headset was off. It sat on the counter beside me, unplugged. Okay, weird, I muttered, wiping my hands and heading out front to check the monitors. Nothing on the cameras, just the still empty lane of the drive-thru and the peeling walls of the adjacent pharmacy that closed last year. I told the manager about it later. He laughed like I was trying to make TikTok horror content or something. Go take your break. Carter, you're overworked. I went back to cleaning. That's when I found the hole. The smell hit first, like wet carpet and something older, rotting. Not quite meat, not quite mold, just wrong. I was crouched behind the fryer, trying to scrape out years of hardened sludge from the corners with a broken spatula when I saw it. A hole, about the size of a dinner plate carved clean into the drywall. It wasn't a mouse hole. Too sharp, too precise. No scratch marks, no insulation mess. It looked like someone had taken a knife and cut it out from the inside. Curious, I pulled out my phone, flicked the flashlight on, and slid it halfway into the opening. Snapped a photo. The image was grainy but unmistakable. Beneath the floorboards, maybe 3 or 4 feet down, was an open cavity, a kind of crawl space. In it were crumpled, filthy Burger King uniforms, old plastic crowns, and a ladder. Not a maintenance one. It was rusted through and sunk into pitch black. Something blurry, maybe a movement, lingered in the bottom corner of the frame. I tried to convince myself it was dust or my hand shaking. Later that shift, Maddie came to the back for her break and I showed her the photo. "Hell no," she whispered. "That's messed up." She wanted to leave early. I didn't blame her. But the manager was asleep in the office and we still had 2 hours left on the clock. An hour later, Maddie disappeared. No dramatic exit. No scream. 1 minute she said she was heading to the freezer to grab more nuggets. The next minute, gone. I searched the whole place. Restroom, dumpster out back, even the alley. But she was just gone. The cops came, took statements. Her car was still in the lot. Jacket hanging in the break room, but nothing else. And the hole, covered up with a metal sheet by morning, like it had never existed. Manager said it was an old maintenance vent. I quit the next night, but quitting didn't mean escaping. The first call came 3 nights later. 3 a.m. sharp. My phone lit up. No caller ID. I let it ring. The second night, same thing. I answered. No voice, just breathing. Wet, ragged. Then the faint sound of a ding, the familiar chime of a drive-through headset connecting. I slammed the phone down. On the third night, I unplugged my phone entirely. Didn't help. The fourth night, it rang from inside my voicemail app. No missed calls, just a new message. I pressed play, breathing again. And under it, a whisper, barely audible. Order ready. Come inside. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. My dreams were worse. I'd wake up soaked in sweat, heart jackhammering, from visions of crawling through that hole. In them, I'd see Maddie, crouched in the dark, uniform torn, mouth sewn shut with something that looked like waxed thread. Her eyes begged for help. Mine never moved. I thought about going to the cops again, but what could I say? There's a haunted fast food vent full of lost employees. Yeah, no thanks. Then the news hit. A week after I left, another employee vanished. A guy named Brandon, quiet kid, first job, last seen clocking in for the night shift. Cameras, down for maintenance. The hole, patched, then mysteriously reopened again 2 days later. That's when I realized something that chilled me worse than anything else. It doesn't just live there, it feeds there. I drove by the Burger King a week later, just to see. Couldn't help myself. The lights were on. Place looked normal. Drive-through was empty. As I rolled past, the intercom crackled. "You forgot your paycheck." I nearly swerved into a parked car. I didn't stop, but something had changed. The next morning, my front door was unlocked. I always lock it, even have a deadbolt, but it was wide open, just swaying in the wind. And inside, a paper burger, king crown, sitting on my couch. I didn't touch it. Didn't even breathe near it, just packed a bag and left for a motel 20 miles out of town. The dreams followed me. Each one, the hole gets bigger, and something in it climbs higher. 3 weeks later, the Blackwater Burger King caught fire. Local news said it was electrical. No one was injured. Apparently it happened right after closing. But the manager? Gone. So was Brandon. No bodies. Found. I'm not naive enough to believe it's over. The thing, whatever's under that building, it's older than the tiles, older than the pipes, maybe older than the town. I've started hearing scratches on my wall at night. Not rats. Not the building settling. Scratches. And once I swear I heard it whisper, "Order up." Some jobs aren't worth the paycheck. When the walls start talking, believe them. Not everything that disappears is gone, and not every hole stays patched. If something calls to you from the dark, don't answer. And if you hear your own voice echoing back from an empty room, run. My name's Vic Delaney. I'm 29, 2 months from finishing a 3-year probation after a stint in Fremont County Jail. Dumb fight, dumber friends. Broke a guy's jaw outside a bar over a bad poker hand and a worse temper. Since then, life's been about keeping my head down. My parole officer doesn't ask questions as long as I clock in every night at 10 and out at 6. That Burger King sits like a scab on the edge of I-90, surrounded by empty lots and the skeleton of a gas station that burned down last winter. The lights inside flicker like they're arguing with the wind, and the heat never works right. But it's a paycheck, and that's more than most folks around Harlan's Bend can say. Most nights were predictable. Drunk drivers looking for coffee, meth heads asking for ice water, long-haul truckers passing through who tipped in dimes and crumbs, and then there was Double Stack. That's not what was on his license, but that's what we called him. Big guy, probably pushing 400 pounds, always showed up around 2 a.m., ordered the same thing, 6 Whoppers, a large Coke, and a bag of onion rings, sat at table 4, right under the busted air vent. Never spoke unless you asked him a direct question. Didn't even eat fast, just slow, methodical chewing like it was his only job in the world. He didn't show up on March 8th, first time in 6 months. Didn't think anything of it. People vanish around here all the time. They OD, hit the way, road, or slip into the woods and don't come back. So we kept flipping burgers, wiping counters, and praying the health inspector didn't come through unannounced. But 2 nights later, the smell hit. Thick, greasy like something left to rot in a deep fryer. I figured it was the dumpsters until Danny pointed to table 4. "Smells worse over here, man," he said, pulling his shirt over his nose. He wasn't wrong. And that's where it all started. The manager, Royce, was this burnt-out ex-Marine who'd taken too many kicks to the head and too few to the soul. You could tell he stopped caring around the Clinton administration. When we told him about the smell, he rolled his eyes and shoved a mop bucket at me. "Clean it up," he said. "If it bleeds, bleach it." So that's what we did. I grabbed the screwdriver from the storage closet and popped off the bolted-down seat at table 4. We weren't supposed to touch the booth's corporate policy, but the smell was unbearable. I figured I'd find old food or maybe a dead rat. Instead, I found 37 Burger King wrappers folded into neat squares and stacked perfectly beneath the cushion. They looked clean, too clean, like someone had taken the time to iron them. Beneath, that was the meat. Half-chewed burger patties, still pink in the middle, sitting like offerings in a little nest of paper. And deeper in the cracks between the floor tiles, something slick, wet, moving, like jelly with a heartbeat. Danny was the first to scream. "It's breathing!" he shouted, stumbling back. "Dude, it's alive!" "Shut up," I snapped, but my voice shook too. Royce came out from the office, took one look, then turned around like he'd seen it before. He didn't even ask questions, just dumped half a bottle of bleach on the floor, told us to screw the seat back down, and walked away muttering about keeping things quiet. I should have walked, right then. Called my PO, said I was done. But I had 60 days left. Just 60 days. So we cleaned it up, screwed the seat down. Problem solved. Or so we told ourselves. A week passed. The smell never fully went away. Sometimes, around 2:30, I'd swear I heard the booth creaking, like someone had just sat down, but every time I looked, the booth was empty. Then came the dreams. Started as flashes, greasy fingers, mouths that didn't close right. One night I dreamt of Double Stack. He was sitting at table 4, his jaw unhinging like a snake's, rows of tiny needle-like teeth twitching beneath his gums. I woke up drenched in sweat, heart hammering. 2 nights later, I saw someone sitting at the booth. Skinny guy, pale as drywall, trucker's cap pulled low. He didn't talk, just stared straight ahead and ordered 6 Whoppers, nothing else. Ate them one by one, wrappers folding neat in his hands, just like Double Stack. "New regular?" I asked Danny. He didn't answer. Just stared at the guy like he was watching a car crash in slow motion. Next night, Danny didn't show, didn't text, didn't call. His mom came by the next morning crying, said he never came home. Cops opened a missing person file. I lied. Told them he probably took off to Denver. Kid always talked about leaving. But I knew better. I'd seen how he looked the last time he cleaned near table 4, like the floor was watching him. It was my last night on the job. I'd turned in my notice, 2 weeks short of probation, but I'd take the risk. Better than ending up like Danny, or whatever Double Stack had become. That night, the restaurant was empty. Even the truckers skipped us. Wind howled through the vents like something warning me not to go near the booth, but I did. I walked over to table 4, kneeled down, and pressed my hand flat to the floor tiles. Warm. I hesitated, then leaned closer, resting my ear against the ground. At first nothing, then thump. Faint, slow, rhythmic, thump, thump, like a pulse, a heartbeat. And worse, under that, something else, something that sounded like chewing. I stood up, took off my apron, and walked out. Didn't even clock out, didn't look back. I moved to Billings the next week. Got a job at a salvage yard. It's honest work. No customers, no deep fryers, no booths. But even now, months later, I catch myself doing weird things. Like folding trash wrappers into neat little squares before I toss them. Like waking up at 2:37 a.m., hands slick with sweat and smelling faintly of beef grease. I haven't been back to Harlan's Bend. I won't. I still don't know what was under that floor. But I know it's still there, still feeding. Every town's got a hole somewhere. Most folks just don't know where to look. Some things stay buried for a reason. When a place feels wrong, don't wait for proof. Don't stay out of guilt, or money, or fear of starting over. The longer you sit at the table, the more likely you are to become part of the meal. And if you ever feel the ground pulsing beneath you, get up, walk away, don't look back. There are kinds of cold that bite, and then there's the kind that burrows. That's the kind you get in Millfield, Ohio in mid-December, when the wind comes slicing off the old railroad yards like it's got unfinished business. I was 31, broke and breathing borrowed air on a friend's couch that smelled like cat piss and weed smoke. That night, December 18th, 2023, I was headed to a job interview 2 towns over, something in a warehouse or maybe shipping. It didn't matter. I knew I wasn't getting it, not with my history. You lose your teaching license in a town like Millfield and you lose more than your career. You lose your dignity, your trust, you lose your name little by little. It was one accusation. One kid said I'd told him not to trust his reflection, that I'd said it wasn't him anymore. Truth is, I barely remember that day. I was overworked, my mother had just passed, and I hadn't slept in days. But that was enough. The district said I was a liability, so I temped, waited tables, bagged groceries, filled out applications to jobs that pretended to be interested. That night I missed my bus by 4 minutes. It wouldn't come again for 2 hours. The stop was outside an old strip mall long since forgotten, boarded up laundromat, payday loan place with flickering neon and one shining relic of corporate decay. A Burger King tucked in the middle like it had nowhere else to be. I didn't want food. I wanted heat. The inside smelled like old grease and cracked vinyl. One kid behind the counter didn't even look up, just nodded like he saw ghosts all the time. There was one man in the dining room, long trench coat soaked from the rain. He sat dead center, hands folded. I took a booth 2 tables away, tried to warm my fingers on a stale cup of coffee. The man never looked at me, but he slid a napkin across his table, toward me. 4 words, printed in perfect block letters. Don't look out the windows. I laughed. Because what else do you do when the world starts feeling wrong again? Then, against every ounce of better judgment I had left, I looked. There are moments that split your life in 2, like a fault line cracking beneath your feet, invisible but permanent. That moment looking out the window was mine. Outside, the parking lot was empty, save for a few puddles and a rusted Camry, but the window didn't reflect that. Instead, it showed me, sitting at the counter, hands wrapped around a tray of food I hadn't ordered. I blinked, looked again. Now I was in the corner booth, hood up, face buried in my arms like I was trying to disappear. Another pain showed me facing the back of the restaurant, shoulders shaking. Crying, maybe, but I hadn't moved. I hadn't done any of that. I spun in my seat, half expecting someone to jump out and yell, "Prank!" or "Gotcha!" The trenchcoat man was gone, vanished. No footsteps, no door swinging open. Just that napkin, new words scrawled on it. They're almost here. I don't remember standing or grabbing my bag. I don't even remember the door. I remember the air hitting my face like a slap, my legs moving before I told them to. I ran to the bus stop and sat there shaking, holding that napkin like it was a map out of hell. When the bus finally pulled up, the driver hesitated. I must have looked wild. "You okay, lady?" he asked. I opened my mouth to speak, but all I said was, "There's more than one of me." He didn't ask questions after that, just let me ride for free. The temp agency dropped me the next day. They said I'd missed too many scheduled engagements and that I had presented as unstable when a potential employer called in a complaint. I didn't fight it, didn't have the energy. My friend Trina asked me to move out by the weekend. She said it gently, but we both knew what it meant. The couch was never mine to begin with. I started noticing things. Mirrors that didn't reflect the right angle. Windows that showed weather that wasn't happening outside. In the reflection of a microwave door at the gas station, I saw myself sitting in that Burger King again. Same booth, same cup of coffee. Only now, I was smiling. I hadn't smiled. In weeks, I stopped looking at mirrors. Took the batteries out of my phone so I wouldn't catch glimpses in the screen. Desperate for answers, I searched online. I used every sleazy true crime forum and message board I could find. 3 cases, all within a year. All tied to the same Burger King. Each one disappeared after talking to themselves in public, ranting about reflections or being followed by their own faces. And all were last seen at 8801 State Route 14. Same building, same windows, same booth. The letter came with no stamp, no return address, just folded neatly and tucked under the broken wiper blade of the borrowed car I was sleeping in. Table 4 is waiting. The paper smelled faintly of fry grease. I stared at it for hours. Couldn't throw it away, couldn't burn it. It stayed with me like a cough you can't shake. That night, I made the mistake of glancing at a darkened window in an alley behind a liquor store. There I was, clear as day, back in the Burger King. But this time I wasn't alone. The trenchcoat man sat across from me, lips moving. I was smiling again, nodding, laughing like we were sharing a private joke. But the worst part? In the reflection, I reached across the table and touched his hand. Something inside me cracked, like my sense of which version of me was real had started to slip. Was that Cass the one who made the better choice? Was she safer, saner, stronger? Was she the real one now? I couldn't be sure anymore. I don't know where I live now. Not really. I couch surf, stay on the move. I avoid places with too much glass. No bathrooms with mirrored walls. No storefronts after dark. I cover the side mirrors when I drive. Because sometimes, I still see her, the other me. She's always sitting in that same booth at the Burger King. Table 4, eating slowly, watching the window. Sometimes I catch her eye, just for a second, and she always smiles, like she knows something I don't. And every now and then, I swear she winks. I think about that trenchcoat man, about how he disappeared, about what. He warned, "They're almost here." I think I understand now. He wasn't warning me, he was inviting me, and maybe I already said yes. Not all reflections are just light and glass. Sometimes they're doors, sometimes they're traps, and sometimes they're waiting for you to look long enough to switch places. So if you ever feel like your reflection moves a second too slow, look away before it gets the chance now to move first. 6 months ago, I blew the whistle on a sergeant who was pocketing evidence cache and burying complaints from the mayor's kid. I thought doing the right thing still meant something. Instead, internal affairs buried me. Now I work nights. No partner. No backup. No real cases. Just noise complaints and the occasional drunk sleeping in their car. Blackwood Estates was supposed to be a quiet beat. Gated communities, Amazon vans, and porch cameras pointed like guns at every driveway. Bardo apartment's one rent hike away from eviction, and my ex. He's gunning for full custody of our dog, Buster. Claims I'm unstable. Says the night shift is taking its toll. He's not wrong. It was raining that night, thick drops smearing across the windshield like sweat. I was sipping cold gas station coffee when dispatch squawked. 1071, possible. Prank call. Resident at 3200 Holloway Road reports unsolicited BK delivery. Caller advised to discard. They wanted me to ignore it. But something about the way they said unsolicited stuck with me. I took the call anyway. The house was quiet, too quiet for a place that still had lights on. A porch cam blinked red like it was watching me watch it. On the welcome mat, a Burger King bag, grease-stained. Inside, a single burnt burger patty, wrapped in wax paper, and a note, scrawled in red marker like it had been rushed. This time, we deliver you. I knocked, called out. No answer. The front door was ajar, never a good sign. Inside, the place looked lived in. Laundry half folded on the couch. TV paused mid-Netflix. A phone buzzing on the kitchen counter, still connected to a call. I picked it up. All I heard was breathing. Slow. Wet. Then a voice, my voice, said, "Order number 666 is ready for pickup." I've faced down dealers in alleyways, drunks with knives, even a teenager once who thought suicide by cop was a game. But I've never felt fear like I did standing in that kitchen, hearing my own voice on a phone I'd never touched. I backed out slowly, phone still pressed to my ear. The line went dead. I called for backup. Standard procedure. But in this town at this hour, standard didn't mean fast. 20 minutes later, 2 rookies showed up. They walked the house, took photos, asked me twice if I was sure I didn't know the guy, Liam Cho. I was sure. I'd never seen him in my life. But there was no Liam to be found. No signs of forced entry. No signs of struggle. Just the bag, still warm, like it had been delivered minutes ago. The lab took the patty, came back as burnt beef with trace amounts of ash and an unidentifiable dark residue. Their words, not mine. No fingerprints. No usable DNA. No explanation. I requested to follow up, but my supervisor gave me a sideways look and said, "Don't waste your time." Guy probably just walked out. Happens more than you think. But I knew better. People don't walk out mid-phone call and leave their burger behind. Not unless they were expecting something worse. 3 nights later, I got the first call. My cell rang, 11:23 p.m. on the dot. Caller ID read, Burger King. I let it go to voicemail. No message. Next night, same thing. By the 5th night I answered. Silence. Then, a sound. Chewing. Wet. Rhythmic. Close. I hung up, blocked the number. It called back anyway. My ex used the missed custody check-in to file again. Told the judge I was obsessed with fast food ghosts and couldn't be trusted with a live animal. I didn't even fight it. I missed Buster more than I should admit. At work, they reassigned me to permanent graveyard. When I protested, the night sergeant laughed and said, "You like chasing ghosts, don't you?" I started researching again. Not the burger, not the bag, but the phrase on the note. This time, we deliver you. I found it, buried deep, in an old urban legend thread from 2006. A joke, they said, a creepypasta. People claiming they got fast food bags with no order, only messages. People who went missing within days. And one comment, anonymous, signed with the initials LC Liam Cho. It was exactly 1 week later when the second bag showed up. This time, at the precinct. It was sitting on my desk when I came in. No one knew who left it. No delivery logs, no security footage showing it being dropped off. Inside, a receipt with my name typed at the top. A wedding ring with L to A always etched on the inside. Liam's ring. I knew it before I even checked the file. The timestamp on the receipt? 11:23 p.m. I asked the station captain for camera footage. He said the server had glitched around that time. Claimed it happens sometimes. I'd never seen it happen once in 7 years. That night, I drove past the Burger King on Holloway Road. Couldn't help myself. Lights were on. Neon flickering like it had the hiccups. And there he was. Liam, sitting at a booth, eating. I pulled over, ran inside. A man behind the counter, pimply, barely old enough to drive, looked up. "We closed early tonight, no one's been here for hours." But on the table where I'd seen Liam, there was a half-eaten burger and a note. Written in my handwriting, You should have answered the phone. I quit the force the next morning. Didn't give 2 weeks. Didn't pack up my locker. Just walked out and never went back. Sold what I could, bought a used pickup, and drove until I crossed 2 state lines. I changed my number, burned the old SIM, paid in cash. Got a job bartending in a town small enough that no one asked about references, but it didn't stop. Every night at 11:23 p.m., a knock. Sometimes a bag left outside my door. Sometimes no bag, just the sound of fries rustling in a paper sack I never touched. Always warm, always mine. I know what it wants now. Not a tip, not a customer. It wants to finish what started with Liam. And I think it won't stop until I'm sitting in that booth, chewing on something that tastes like ash and memory. Some things that knock late at night aren't looking to be let in. They're looking for replacements. If something comes to deliver you, don't answer, don't listen. And above all, never place an order you can't take back. Most people don't understand what it means to be stuck. They think stuck is a bad breakup or a job they hate but can quit. Me? I was stuck in every sense of the word. Norwich, Connecticut isn't the worst place in the world, but it's where hope goes to get calloused. You grow up under highway noise, drop out of community college when the loans start stacking, and you take whatever job keeps your lights on and your sister's meds filled. For me, that job was slinging fries at a Burger King off I-95. Not the nice kind of fast food chain with clean booths and a working ice cream machine. This one wheezed like an old smoker. The air conditioner was a rumor, and the oil in the fryers looked like something drained from a '97 Camry. The manager, Roy, was a piece of work, built like a toad and proud of it. He wore mirrored sunglasses, inside like it was cool, and he bragged about his bass boat more than any man should. Roy didn't care about us, not really. Just about keeping food costs low and his quarterly bonuses high. Change the oil? I asked, sweating bullets. It's foaming, Roy, like a science experiment gone wrong. He waved me off. Stretch it. Corporate's sniffing. We're not blowing cost over fries. But it's black. He shrugged. So's coffee. I should have walked. But my sister Angie needed Kepra. $480 a bottle without insurance. I needed this job more than it needed me. Then it happened. 4:47 p.m., mid-lunch rush. The place smelled like sweat and salt. I dropped a fresh basket of fries into the fryer and the oil popped, not like popcorn, more like a shotgun blast. A geyser of hot grease shot up and doused my right arm. It was like fire eating through cloth. I screamed, dropped the tongs, and backed up into the ice machine. Roy tossed me a dirty kitchen rag. Wrap it. We're short-staffed. I stumbled into the back restroom, peeled the polyester sleeve away. Skin came with it. Later, Roy slid me a crumpled $100 bill and said, "Don't be a bitch, it's just a burn." But I already knew. It wasn't just anything. I went to the urgent care clinic that night. They gave me a tetanus shot, wrapped my arm, told me to monitor for infection. The nurse asked how it happened. I said the fryer exploded. She looked away like that wasn't her first time hearing it. I filed an OSHA report the next day. Roy didn't say a word, just stared at me through his sunglasses like I was something he'd scrape off the tile. 3 days later, I got a text at 7:12 a.m. No need to come in. Schedule changed. You're not needed this week. That was it. No meeting. No warning. Nothing. The letter came a week later. Failure to meet productivity standards. I laughed out loud, the kind of laugh that doesn't reach your chest. My arm got worse, the bandage soaked through every morning. The urgent care said it was MRSA, the kind of infection you get when kitchens don't get cleaned and managers cut corners on sanitizer. The antibiotics were over $200. Angie's meds were $480. We made a choice. She skipped a dose that week. It was my fault. I know that now. I just didn't want to admit it then. I tried to get work again. Taco Bell, Wendy's, even the gas station deli counter. Nobody was hiring. Not for me anyway. "You were at Roy's place, right?" a shift lead asked. "Yeah. Word is you're kind of high maintenance." I stood there holding my resume in a sticky lobby, bleeding through my bandage. High maintenance. That's what they called people who didn't want to be maimed for minimum wage. Angie had another seizure. It happened at Dollar General, just collapsed in front of the pet food aisle. She bit her tongue so hard it bled down her chin. The ambulance came, stabilized her. We got the bill a week later, $300. That was the final straw. I thought about calling a lawyer, thought about protesting out front of Burger King with a cardboard sign. But I was tired, real tired. Then I saw the new kid behind the counter one afternoon, barely 15, acne blooming across his cheeks, nervous hands on the fry baskets. A week later, I heard he'd been burned. 3rd degree. Roy blamed carelessness. I should have snapped earlier. Maybe it would have saved someone. But anger doesn't come in one big burst. It trickles. A slow drip you can ignore until it floods. I was parked across the street in a busted Civic that barely held coolant, watching the Burger King through a cracked windshield. The new fry cook, bandage up to the elbow, was loading the basket, like it might bite him. Inside, the fryer still smoked. And Roy? He was in the back, laughing with a drive-through headset on, one hand holding a soda the size of his ego. He looked up and saw me. Grinned. Like none of it mattered. Like he'd already won. I could have rammed my car through the window. Could have walked in, poured the fryer on his baseboat-loving skull. Instead, I turned the key. The engine stalled. I sat there until the lunch rush ended. Then I went home. I bandaged my arm again, wrapped it tighter this time, and I waited. It's been months. My arm's healed in places, scarred in others. Angie's okay, mostly. We found a sliding scale clinic that gives her meds for half price. I'm working night stock at a grocery chain now. No fryers, just boxes and silence. But I still drive by that Burger King. Sometimes I see Roy outside cleaning his windshield with a rag. Sometimes I see the new kids inside, fresh meat lined up to learn how little their safety is worth. And sometimes I dream. In the dream, I'm back in that kitchen. The oil is boiling like lava, thick and dark. Roy's there, but he's not, wearing sunglasses. He looks afraid. I lift the basket and dunk him in head first. The oil bubbles. It spits. And for the first time since I started there, it turns golden, not black. Clear, clean, like justice. I wake up hungry. When a system is built on cutting corners, it always cuts people first. Never let someone convince you that your pain is part of the price of a paycheck, because bad oil doesn't just burn, it spreads, and sometimes it kills. You can tell a lot about a city by where its fast food sits. On Magnolia Avenue in Knoxville, Burger King is wedged between a payday loan place and a pawn shop with a broken sign that just says PAN. The sidewalks here are cracked and tired, same as the people rushing over them. I wasn't much different that Tuesday afternoon, April 4th, 2023. I was 28, living on freelance gigs, waiting on a client who swore my check was in the mail for 2 weeks straight. My apartment's Wi-Fi had been cut off that morning. It wasn't the first time either. That left me with 2 options: public library with screaming kids in the corner, or Burger King with sticky floors, weak coffee, and free Wi-Fi if you asked for the password. So there I was. Table by the soda fountain, laptop open, fries half eaten, inbox empty. That's when I saw him. Mid-30s maybe. Hoodie pulled low, face tight like he hadn't slept in a week. He kept rocking on his feet like he didn't trust the floor to hold him. 2 minutes later, she walked in. Blonde, big sunglasses, tote bag. The kind of careful that's trying not to look careful. They didn't acknowledge each other, just brushed past. I blinked, and suddenly he had a bag in his hand that hadn't been there before. White paper, greasy at the bottom. He turned fast and left, nearly knocking into an old guy coming through the door. The woman stayed. opened a laminated menu like she had nothing better to do than decide between chicken fries and a Whopper. She looked still, too still. 5 minutes later, movement exploded. Plainclothes officers in jeans and windbreakers rushed her. One flashed a badge at the cashier, who barely looked up before nodding toward the back exit. The woman didn't scream. She didn't even blink until one of the officers tugged her sunglasses off mid-cuff. And then she looked right at me. Not long, but long enough. The cops took her out the back. The cashier went back to wiping counters. I sat there, hand halfway, to my fries, trying to convince myself that I'd imagined all of it. I hadn't, and I was about to learn just how deep this place ran. I told myself to leave. I could pack up, walk out, find a Panera with less drama and a working espresso machine. But I stayed. Not because I was brave, because I was broke. Broke people get used to weird things. So I finished my fries, typed a polite follow-up to my disappearing client, and tried to forget what I'd seen. Next day I came back. Same seat, same password, different vibe. The cashier, he was always there. Skinny guy, arms covered in half-finished tattoos, one earbud always in. I asked him if he'd seen what happened yesterday. He didn't even look up, just said, "Don't ask about what you don't want to answer for." I blinked. So that was real? He finally glanced at me, smirked. "Mind your business. Last guy who didn't, his car got stolen." I stared at him for a second too long, and he nodded. Toward my fries. Salt's free. Advice cost more. Later that day, I started noticing other things. A napkin slid between two truckers. One picks it up, leaves a 20 behind. A guy in the corner booth talking into his drink lid like there's a mic in it. A woman with a diaper bag that jingles. Too much when she sets it down. It wasn't just a Burger King, it was a damn post office for illegal activity. Everyone knew it. No one said a thing. But me? I'm the idiot who makes logos for vape shops and EDM DJs. I wasn't supposed to see any of this. That night, someone slipped a flyer under my apartment door. Hand-drawn, just a crown, and the words, "Order up, stay hungry." I didn't sleep. Much. My laptop pinged once. My client responded, said the check would be sent soon. It never came. The next time I sat down in that booth, I didn't even open my laptop. I just stared at the seat across from me, waiting for someone to fill it. They did. A man in a flannel jacket and mirrored sunglasses slid into the seat like we'd planned it. He set a burner phone down on the tray between us. Still had grease spots on it. "You Jesse Cole?" he asked. I nodded. "You do logos, right?" I hesitated. "Depends who's asking." He smiled. "Some people need a new look. Clean, sharp, something professional." "What's the company?" I asked, already knowing there wasn't one. He chuckled. "No company, just cash." I should have left. I should have said no. Instead, I asked, "How much?" He named a figure, enough to cover 3 months of rent, enough to make me forget about unpaid invoices and cold emails. He tapped the burner. Phone. "All specs are on there. Deadline's Friday." I picked it up. Felt heavier than it looked. He stood. "You deliver, we pay. Simple." The smell of fryer oil followed him out. I sat in that booth a little longer, watching the cashier count singles without looking up once. That night I looked through the phone. Design specs. Font types, even a fake business name, Orion Ventures. Legit sounding enough to hide anything. But under the branding files was a folder I hadn't noticed. Inside, a high-res photo of me, driver's license, social profiles, and a half-finished ID card, my face, someone else's name. I should have trashed the phone, turned it in, done anything else, but I needed the money. So I did the job. Sent over the logos, the mock-ups, even a fake invoice just to feel normal again. An hour later, the phone buzzed. We'll be in touch. The next morning, my apartment door was ajar. Nothing was missing. No forced entry. But sitting on my desk was a Burger King receipt. Order number 13, paid in full. I stared at it for 10 minutes. It wasn't mine. I hadn't been in that day. I called the number on the burner. Disconnected. Next few nights, I started using the drive-thru instead. I'd order fries just to test if the cashier would look up. He always did. One night, I spotted him outside, just standing in the lot, watching my car idle at the light. He didn't move, didn't wave, just stared. The next morning, a new message came through on my laptop, an encrypted folder. No subject, inside, new design requests. Same tone, same price, different client. I moved 3 weeks later, just a couple streets over, nothing major. Told myself it was for better Wi-Fi. Truth was, I couldn't take the way my apartment felt anymore, like someone had rearranged the air. Work kept coming, always anonymous, always encrypted. Every gig, paid in cash, no questions. I told myself it was just design work. A logo was just lines and colors, but lines can brand anything. Cartels, shell companies, black market networks. I tried to quit once, let an assignment sit too long. That night I came home to a sealed manila envelope at my door. Inside was a photograph. Me at the grocery store, bagging oranges. No note, just the photo. I finished the design that night. Sometimes I still drive by the old Burger King. The place never closes. The flickering lights always on, like they're waiting. And sometimes just before sleep I remember the woman with the sunglasses, the calm, the stillness. She knew, like I do now, once you're in, you're not really getting out. Not every job is worth the paycheck. When survival blurs your boundaries, even the smallest yes can lead you into shadows that never let go. The line between freelancer and accomplice is thinner than you think, and sometimes it's printed right under your name. The desert doesn't care if you're broke. That's what I remember thinking, sitting in my Honda with the gas light on, watching the temperature gauge hover just under the red. The sun had dipped hours ago, but the heat lingered, suffocating, thick, like the night itself didn't want to cool off. August 13th, 2023, Redmire, Arizona. A nowhere town clinging to old Route 66 like a cracked scab on the map. They had one attraction, the Lost Souls car show held every Friday the 14th, and I didn't give a damn. I was only here because my last passenger stiffed me, said he needed to hit the ATM at a Shell station, then bolted into the scrub behind the gas pumps. Left me holding a $40 tab and an empty tank. The only cash I had left was a ragged 20 stuffed behind my driver's license. My ex Brielle had texted 30 minutes earlier. Venmo me $500 or Max stays with me for good, I'm not kidding. Max is my dog, my best friend, only creature that never let me down. Now I was circling the last open place in town, Burger King. Just wanted a Coke to cool my throat and maybe feel human again. The place was deserted. The drive-through lights flickered like bug zappers about to give up. I rolled up slow, ordered the drink, and waited behind a non-existent line. Static popped through the intercom as someone mumbled, "Pull forward." That's when I saw him. A man in a crusty, faded Burger King crown standing 20 feet behind my car. At first I figured he was drunk or homeless. He didn't walk, just drifted in circles, slow, deliberate. I looked back once more, and he was at my window, face pale and waxy, eyes black, no whites. The crown wasn't just sitting on his head, it was sewn in, stitches thick and black, tugging his skin. "Congratulations," he whispered. His breath smelled like burned meat and old pennies. I floored it, nearly slammed into a Camry that wasn't there 2 seconds ago. At the pickup window, the cashier slid me a greasy bag. I peeked inside. No food, just a napkin, written in barbecue sauce, barely legible. You were the 100th soul. The cashier grinned like he was in on the joke. Prize pickups around back. I didn't wait to ask. I gunned it out of there like something was chewing at my tires. My rear view showed the man in the crown still standing at the edge of the drive-thru watching. He raised a hand, more of a wave, maybe a blessing. I didn't know. I didn't care. I drove until the town lights disappeared behind me, then pulled over at a gas station with busted pumps just to breathe. My phone buzzed. One voicemail, no number. I played it. Just breathing. Heavy, wet, followed by a distant ding, the sound of a drive-thru bell. I nearly threw my phone out the window. My hands were shaking when I opened my wallet, needing to see that at least my last 20 was still there. It wasn't. In its place was a faded coupon. 1 free Whopper. Expires July 14th, 1987. No. Hell no. I sat there for 10 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to will this into a joke. Maybe the heat fried my brain. Maybe the guy was just some desert meth head pulling a stunt. Maybe. Then Brielle texted again. A photo of Max, my husky. Except this time he was wearing a Burger King crown. Pay up, or he's next. I stared at that picture until the screen dimmed. My dog. My Max. Looking right into the camera with those eyes that always knew when I was spiraling. Then another message popped up. No contact. Just a picture of the Burger King drive-thru menu. Except this one had been changed. The screen said, Leo. Vasquez, order up. Below it, prize waiting. Throne's warm, come home. The air in my car got heavier. The engine made a noise like it didn't want to be there anymore either. I didn't sleep that night. I drove loops around the outskirts of town until the sun came up. Nothing felt real. Everything felt too real. That night was just the beginning. The desert has a way of playing tricks on your eyes. Heat waves make the road shimmer and headlights bleed into the horizon like fire. But I know what I saw. Every time I looked in my rear view after that night, he was there. The Crown Man, 1 car back, 2, then right behind me. No matter how fast I drove, how far I went, he always appeared, never driving, just being, staring, silent. I started avoiding mirrors. Tossed the one in my glove box, covered the rear view with duct tape. It didn't help. At one stoplight, I dared to look in the side mirror. He was standing in the middle of the road, arms outstretched, like he was welcoming me. I nearly drove off the road. The breaking point came in Holbrook, 50 miles east. I pulled over at a rest stop and sat in the grass behind the lot. Left the car idling. I needed to think, to run, something. That's when I heard footsteps. Slow, crunching, gravel. I didn't turn around, I just asked, "What do you want?" Silence. Then a soft thunk beside me. I opened my eyes. It was the same Burger King bag, grease-stained, napkin inside. Same message. You were the 100th soul. But this time the number had been scratched out. Rewritten. 101. That night I ditched the car. Left it running, keys on the dash, windows down. Took a Greyhound out of state, I didn't care where. Just away. But horror doesn't care about mileage. The bus was nearly empty. 2 teens with earbuds, an old woman holding a paper bag like it was a newborn. I slumped into the back seat, jacket over my head, trying to forget. At the first stop, somewhere outside Flagstaff, the bus jolted. We idled a long time. Then I saw the driver get up and walk down the aisle. He stopped next to me. Wore a uniform. And a crown. "Wrong way, King," he said softly. Before I could speak, the bus doors sealed, like hydraulics locking a vault. Lunged forward, but the teens were gone. The old woman was gone. The lights dimmed and the bus started moving again, but the windows were blacked out. Nothing but reflection. And in every window, him, me, in the crown. I don't remember much after that, just flashes. My hands on the wheel of a car that wasn't mine, my name on a menu, a room filled with mirrors and crowns and napkins smeared in barbecue sauce. When they found my car back in Redmire, it was parked in the Burger King drive-thru, engine running, driver's door open. Inside they found a half-eaten Whopper, Max's leash chewed at the end, and one napkin, center of the seat, written in red sauce, 1001. No sign of me. Some say I snapped. Heat stroke, stress, desert madness. I don't blame them. But I'm still here. I see things now. In chrome hubcaps, greasy windows, menu screens. Every time someone new pulls into that drive-thru, I wonder, is this the next one? The one on second? Some deals don't ask for your signature. They only need your presence and your silence. Because once you've been counted, you never really leave the line. I never liked the dark. Even as a kid, I'd sleep with a nightlight. Still do, actually. But it wasn't the dark itself that scared me. It was what might be in it. That empty space between you and the unknown. That pause before a footstep. That creak you tell yourself is just the house settling. I took the night shift at Burger King to fight that fear. My therapist called it exposure therapy. My dad called it growing up. Whatever it was, it didn't feel brave. It felt stupid. But I needed the money, and my uncle got me the job through his buddy, Mr. Dawson. So 2 nights a week from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., I wore a paper crown and handed out fries to drunks and teenagers. The place was on West Addison, tucked near an old apartment complex and a closed-down Payless Shoes. It wasn't dangerous, not really, but it wasn't comforting either. Just hollow. Especially at 2 a.m., when the buzz of the fryer was louder than your thoughts. Mr. Dawson swore the security cameras were solid. State-of-the-art, he said. I never questioned it, mostly because I didn't want to know what I'd see if I looked too closely. Usually my nights passed with a couple of Uber drivers and stoned college kids ordering milkshakes. Same faces. Same weird smell in the mop closet. Nothing to be afraid of until that night in November. It was bitter cold. Wind slapped the windows, and even the deep fryer seemed tired. The lobby was empty, and I'd just finished restocking the sauces when I glanced at the back door. And that's when everything changed. It was open. Not wide, but enough to matter. I stood there, frozen, gripping a packet of honey mustard like it was a weapon. I knew I'd locked that door. I always did. Mr. Dawson had drilled it into me, locked the back door before 11 every night, no exceptions. But there it was, ajar. Just an inch, just enough to make you think maybe it hadn't latched. But I knew it had. I walked to the monitor, above the drive-thru window, and clicked through the camera feeds. Kitchen, alley, freezer, dining room. Everything looked normal. Dim, dusty, lifeless. I stared longer than I should have, maybe hoping to see nothing. Then I did. Movement, just a blur at first, in the top corner of the dining room feed. I clicked to zoom in, squinting at the grainy footage, and there he was, tall, hooded, standing, perfectly still next to the soda machine, his head tilted up, right at the camera, right at me. I backed away like the screen could hurt me. My throat tightened. I could hear the clock ticking above the fryer. Just ticking, like everything was paused except me and him. I reached for my phone but realized it was on the counter by the front register. Too far. The front doors were locked. The back was open. I was boxed in, and he was between me and the only way out. I ducked behind the counter, hands shaking. I could barely breathe. My heart pounded so loud I was afraid he might hear it. The silence felt heavy, like he was just standing there listening for me to move. That's when I remembered the staff bathroom. It had a window, small, but maybe enough. I crawled. Not ran, not walked. Crawled. Like a kid hiding under the covers from monsters. Except this one was real. And inside with me. The tile floor was freezing, and every shift of my elbow echoed. I kept my eyes on the dark kitchen ahead. The hallway to the employee bathroom was about 20 feet away, but it felt like a mile. I didn't dare look back at the dining area. I didn't want to see if he was moving. When I finally reached the hallway, I scrambled to my feet and pushed the bathroom door open, locking it behind me. The tiny room smelled like bleach and whatever sad soap the dispenser always half spit into your hand. There was a mirror, a toilet, and the window, set high and narrow above the sink. I climbed onto the toilet, shoved the window up, and it squealed like it hadn't been opened in years. My fingers were going numb, but I didn't stop. I pulled myself up, scraping my arms on the sides. It was a tight fit. I'm not a big person, but even for me it was a squeeze. Halfway through, I got stuck. My belt caught on the latch. I had to yank it off entirely and leave it dangling. I didn't. Caught her. I kicked out, dropped onto the pavement behind the restaurant, and landed hard on my ankle. It popped. I screamed. Didn't even mean to. It just came out. But adrenaline was a hell of a drug. I hobbled across the street toward the BP gas station, crying, limping, trying not to fall. The clerk, some sleepy guy in a hoodie, stared like I was nuts. I begged him to call 911. He did, I think. I didn't stop crying until the cops came. The police arrived fast. Too fast, honestly. It made me wonder how often they were called to this area. The cruiser lights painted everything in red and blue, like the world couldn't decide between danger and safety. I limped beside one of the officers as he led me back toward the Burger King. Every step made my ankle scream, but I didn't care. I just wanted him to see what I saw. I wanted proof I hadn't imagined it. They checked the back door first, still ajar. No signs of forced entry, but footprints, muddy ones, tracked across the tile and into the dining area. They found a soda cup knocked over, some ketchup packets on the floor. The soda machine light flickered, but that was it. The cameras? Offline, they said. The feed cut out around 2:31 a.m., right after I saw him. Dawson showed up, groggy and annoyed, muttering about kids these days and probably thinking I made the whole thing up. I mean, it was probably just some guy looking to sleep in the warmth, he said. It's cold out there. I didn't answer. I just looked at the camera, the one he had stared into, the one that cut out right after. They didn't find him. They searched the freezer, the bathroom, even the mop closet. Nothing. Like he was never there, but he was. I saw him, and I know he saw me. I quit the next morning, told Dawson I'd figure something else out. He didn't argue. The cops called once to follow up, said they'd patrol the area more often. That was it. Case closed. It's been 5 months. I don't talk about it much, not even to my therapist. She says trauma processes on its own time, which is a polite way of saying give it a few years. I haven't stepped into a fast food joint since. I double lock everything now. Windows, doors, even my car when I'm pumping gas. I don't listen to music when I walk home at night. I need to hear what's around me. I don't want to, but I need to. And sometimes when it's late and I'm alone, I swear I hear it. That soft ding of the Burger King drive-thru. The one that plays when a car pulls up. Only, I'm not near any Burger King. Sometimes I check my phone thinking maybe I left a video playing. I never did. Sometimes I think it's in my head. But the fear? That's real. The kind that hides under your skin. Quiet. Patient. Like he was. The worst part? I still don't know what he wanted. If he was just some drifter or something worse. I've read stories about people who disappear during overnight shifts. Workers gone missing without a trace. Everyone assumes they ran away. I wonder how many of them saw a man like mine, standing in a corner saying nothing, staring at a camera, waiting for someone to look back.